Alright, what is this? 800,000? Okay.
You probably know what this is. It's a health bar, an energy meter, or life gauge. Whatever you call it, they're everywhere. An essential part of video games and their language of design. It's a simple, elementary thing, but they haven't been around forever. Back in the golden era of arcade games, things were a bit simpler. Either you were alive or dead. There was no in between. If you touch a ghost in Pac-Man or an alien laser in Space Invaders, that was it. Life lost, maybe game over. However, by the mid-1980s, things became more forgiving. In beat-em-ups like Final Fight and the earlier Renegade, you could take a few punches, indicated by the now familiar health bar at the top of the screen. It's an easy way to convey player health. Bar charts aren't exactly uncommon, nor are they particularly hard to implement, even on basic hardware. One of the earliest examples is probably Nintendo's 1983 arcade game Punch-Out!, which has a similar configuration to later fighting games like Street Fighter II. It's more of a stamina bar than a vitality one, but it works as you'd expect. When it's empty, it's a knockout. But as we go further back, the very concept of health starts to change, and we begin to see what would be more accurately described as energy bars. Instead of just losing health when you get hit, these examples continuously decayed, acting more as a timer. And given the popularity of spaceships and jetpacks, they were sometimes labelled as fuel or air supplies, such as in Manic Miner or Lunar Jetman. 1979's Astro Fighter, Data East's first release, is the earliest
Astro Fighter? Did they steal their fucking ships from Star Wars?
If fuel exactly fits the definition of a health bar.
The previous ones,
they are part
did you
of the
see?
same lineage
Fucking...
and stretch back to the earliest days of the arcade, just a year after Space Invaders.
I forgot what they're called.
So the humble health bar has an
TIE
origin,
Fighters.
and only really became common from 1984 or so.
That's how they sound like when they fly.
During these early years, before the bar was codified as an absolute standard, there were some alternatives. Sometimes, health was displayed as a numerical value, such as in Gauntlet or
Rogue.
This method of tracking hit points can be traced to pen and paper games like D&D.
Yo, wait.
Another style from the transitional era is pen and paper games like D&D. Another style from the transitional era is two-stage health. The most famous example being Mario and Super Mushrooms, where you can power up and survive a hit without dying. Ghosts and Goblins does something similar. Take a hit and you lose your armor. Take another in this state of undress and you're dead. Sometimes health meters would emulate an electrocardiogram, such as in Nodes of Yesod, where its heartbeat indicator decreases in vigor as you sustain damage. This style isn't common, but has been surprisingly persistent. It turns up in later titles such as Shadow of the Beast, System Shock, and quite notably in Resident Evil. There's another particular type of health meter that's a little unusual and kind of rare, but it's definitely my favourite. I call it the Chickenometer. Now, essentially, it's just a fancy health bar, but instead of being a boring rectangle, instead it's a visual representation of your vitality. The first game to feature one is Attic Attack by Ultimate Play the Game, the studio later known as Rare. Your health is represented by the image of a roast chicken, slowly decaying with time or when you take hits. With each portion lost, it reveals the bones which constitute the chicken. Flesh slowly deplenished until eventually you lose a life and the chicken resets. It is, quite frankly, vulgar. A bar would have sufficed, but instead we get this colossal indicator that dominates the screen and no doubt takes up plenty of RAM. I think they did it for two main reasons. The first is the restricted size of the playfield. In order to keep screen updates snappy, the action only occupies a portion of the screen, giving the HUD plenty of space to fill with vital info. Secondly, I think Ultimate was showing off. Attic Attack released in 1983,
okay,
when even
the
basic
point.
health
Are you
bars
seriously
weren't
making
particularly
a whole
common.
fucking video about
So having this ornate piece of poetry on screen
animation
demonstrates that you
style
don't
of
have to
sprite
forego fancy
drawing of a
graphics
health bar?
in a game full of fast action. Essentially, proof that you can both have your chicken and eat it. Anyway, Attic Attack turned out to be a bestseller. Deservedly so, as it was a great game. And, as game conventions were still quite malleable, a few imitated this rather idiosyncratic feature. Pyjamarama has a pint of milk that represents your snooze power. Wake up by depleting its
power!
Agent X has a particularly ornate HUD. With each
I mean, and this doesn't fucking interest me, I'm sorry. Doesn't interest me. King Drone says, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday, Mr. Forsen? I'm doing fucking fabulous, man. Fucking fabulous, other than my lip.